At my sister's funeral, a text came in from an unfamiliar number. I'm alive. Don't trust our parents. That's when everything changed. Stay with me while I share what happened. And please don't forget to support this channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing. Your encouragement means more than you know. Now let's return to the story. The rain poured down as if the heavens themselves were grieving. Black umbrellas huddled together while shovels tossed damp earth onto polished wood. Muffled prayers, quiet sobs, and the sound of tissues crumpling filled the air. People murmured about the unfairness of it all. They said the woman in that casket was my twin, Layla Carter. They said the other half of me was gone forever. I stood near the grave, hands shoved into my coat pockets, fighting to breathe past the knot tightening my chest. My name is Maya Carter. I'm 35, born and raised in East Riverton, Georgia. Up until that day, the hardest thing I had ever survived was the wreckage of our parents' broken marriage. But this was unlike anything before. As the pastor spoke, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. Blinking through rain-streaked vision, I glanced down. A message glowed on the screen. I'm alive. That's not me. My knees nearly gave way. My mouth went dry. If my sister was alive, then who lay in that coffin? And who had spun this nightmare into motion? To explain how I ended up at a graveside with a message that shattered my world in two, I need to go back. To the beginning. To when Layla and I were just two little black girls growing up in a house too small for hope and too loud with arguments. We were born on a cold November morning in 1990, at St. Augustine Community Hospital. I arrived first, 9 minutes ahead of Layla, a fact I never let her forget. Our father, Vernon, was a pipefitter who spent more on whiskey than groceries. Our mother, Patrice, worked long cashier shifts that left her drained and resentful. They had married young and poor. And by the time we came along, love had soured into bitterness. Our home on Pine Hollow Road leaned as if it sagged under the weight of secrets. Winters meant wearing coats indoors just to stay warm. Summers brought swarms of gnats in the kitchen and shouting matches in the living room that rattled through thin walls. From the very start, Layla and I only had each other. She was the dreamer, always painting life in brighter colors. I was the protector, stepping forward when tempers flared. Together, we survived nights filled with broken glass and mornings drowned in silence. One Christmas Eve, when we were 8, Mama and Daddy had one of their worst fights. A glass shattered, doors slammed, and we huddled beneath a crooked tree with no presents, just a couple of stale peppermints from a neighbor. Layla's eyes shone as she whispered, "Did Santa forget us?" My throat ached, but I forced a smile and lied. "No, he's just running late. I'll be your Santa." That night, I crept outside, gathered smooth stones from the creek, dried them on the radiator, and scribbled flowers and stars with dull crayons. On Christmas morning, when I placed them in her hands, she hugged me tight, grinning wide. "You're the best sister in the world, Maya." That smile carried me for years. By 12, we were already hustling to keep ourselves afloat. I delivered newspapers in the freezing dawn. Layla babysat Miss Dorsey's twins, bringing home a few crumpled bills. We stashed our earnings in an old coffee can behind a loose floorboard, half for school supplies, half for small treats on scorching summer days. On the worst nights, when the shouting downstairs shook the house, we pushed a dresser against our bedroom door and hid under the quilt. I'd whisper promises, "One day we'll have our own place. No yelling, only peace." She'd nod, tears streaking her cheeks, and add her own dream. A blue couch, and a shelf full of books I don't have to borrow. School revealed our differences. Layla devoured every library book she could touch, her notebooks bursting with dreams. I was more practical. Fixing bikes for neighbors, tinkering with engines until they purred. She taught me fractions with pennies. I taught her how to stay calm when Riverton Creek tugged too hard at our ankles. Once, when the current nearly dragged her under, I dove in and pulled her back. She clung to me, gasping, "You saved me." In that moment I understood. She wasn't just my sister. She was my purpose. At 18, our paths split. Layla chased scholarships and landed one at Magnolia State University in New Orleans. I stayed behind. Someone had to pay the rent and keep the lights on. I worked shifts at Riverton Freight and Auto, fixing engines, hauling loads, and sending her money for books whenever I could. She'd call every Sunday, her voice alive with stories. Maya, New Orleans smells like spice and rain. I walk by the river and imagine you beside me. I smiled, but inside I feared the distance might stretch our bond too thin. Then came the name that would change everything, Adrian Cole. He's in med school, she told me, trying to sound casual. From Seabreeze, North Carolina. His family owns a clinic. He's different, Maya. He listens. I warned her not to lose focus. But that Thanksgiving, when she brought him home, I understood. Adrian was respectful, grounded. He helped Mama with the dishes like he'd grown up in our kitchen. Most of all, he looked at Layla as though she carried the whole world in her eyes. They married under sprawling oaks by the sea. A few years later, I stood in a second-hand dress, watching my twin walk down the aisle in lace, radiant. She leaned close and whispered, "I'm happy, Maya. Really happy." And I answered the only way I knew. "Then I'm happy too." Adrian built his career. And together they built a life filled with laughter and ocean views. Layla sent me sunrise photos from their porch, urging me to visit. I stayed in Riverton, rooted, but proud of every step she took. Then came the storm, not from the sea, but from Adrian's own failing body. An illness no doctor could cure. I drove through the night to stand by her side. Adrian's last words to me were simple: "Take care of her." A month later he was gone. At the lawyer's office, we learned Adrian had left everything to Layla. $46 million in assets, their home, and his shares in the family practice. Her hand crushed mine until my fingers ached. "I don't want this without him," she whispered. I told her the truth. He wanted you safe. He wanted you to live. But wealth is never just a gift. Sometimes it's a curse. And that curse came for us quickly, starting with the very people who raised us. The first time I saw the yacht, I knew it didn't belong in our story. It gleamed like something from a magazine: polished decks, chrome railings catching the sun, cabins lined in velvet and glass. Layla squeezed my hand, pulling me toward her hope. "Just us again, Maya. Like when we were kids." The captain, a wiry man with eyes hardened by storms, introduced the crew: Miles, the technician, and Derek, a young deckhand. They were polite, but the way they avoided my gaze unsettled me. We left the marina on a clear morning, the ocean stretching wide as forever. Layla stood at the bow, braids whipping across her shoulders, laughter carried by the wind. "Remember Riverton Creek? This is like that, only bigger." I forced a smile, but unease sat heavy in my chest. The first day passed gently. We sipped fruit juice on the deck, swapped childhood stories, and for a moment, the weight of grief seemed lighter. Layla's laugh pulled me back to those evenings tucked beneath our blanket fort, when only our make-believe kept the cold at bay. By the second night, though, the sky soured. Clouds gathered in heavy layers. Wind tore at the sails and the radio died into static. The captain kept his voice steady, just a passing storm, but I watched his knuckles blanch on the wheel. By dawn the sea had turned into a living thing. Waves reared up like walls and slammed into the hull. Isla's nails dug into my arm. "Maya, I can't." "Hold on," I said, hauling her down into the cabin. My own voice trembled, but I forced it flat so she wouldn't catch the fear. Then something below us detonated. A brutal, tearing sound that ran through the boat. Miles shouted, "Engine's gone. We can't steer." The vessel pitched, hurling us into the bulkheads. Glass exploded. Water rushed in. I jammed a life jacket onto Yayla, pushing her hands into mine. "No matter what, don't let go." Her eyes filled, but she nodded. The next wave consumed us. Cold slammed into my chest. I fought upward, coughing and sputtering, scanning the chopping surface. "Layla!" I bellowed into the chaos. The ocean answered with flotsam, a fractured chair, a strip of canvas, but no sister. I dove once, twice, my arms aching. I broke the surface and screamed her name until my throat burned. Another swell pulled me down. I clawed back, grasping a splintered plank. Time dissolved into a blur. When the Coast Guard's searchlight finally cleaved the night, I barely managed to raise a hand. They hauled me aboard, wrapping a blanket around me that couldn't match the chill inside my bones. "Any survivors?" I croaked. The officer shook his head. "We'll keep looking, but so far nothing." I crumpled, salt water and tears mixing on my face. The image of Ila's face sliding beneath the waves cut itself into me. In the hospital, machines beeped on in steady, mocking rhythm as if timing my fracture. I replayed every choice, agreeing to the trip, ignoring my unease, letting Mama and Daddy pressure us into it. My body mended. My spirit did not. 2 days later, Mama and Daddy came into my room. Mama wore her church scarf. Daddy had on his battered brown jacket. From the doorway they could have passed for grieving parents, but I knew those eyes too well. I had grown up watching them test how much they could bear. Mama pressed a hand to my shoulder. Her voice trembled just enough to sound practiced. "Baby, we're so sorry. Tell us what happened." I gave them the fragments. The storm, the wreck, the silence. When I admitted I hadn't seen Isla after that wave, their faces hardly shifted. Mama's eyes flared, not with sorrow, but with certainty. Daddy muttered, "Coast Guard says nobody else made it." His voice held no break, only something like relief. Then the questions came, a barrage. How bad was the engine? Did the radios fail completely? Did anyone see Isla go under? Each inquiry felt sharper than the last, drilling for confirmation. When they finally left, Mama paused at the door. "If you hear anything else about Isla, tell us right away." I nodded, but inwardly I vowed they'd find out last. A week later the Coast Guard called. They'd found a body washed up on shore, unrecognizable and badly decomposed, but matching the timeline of the wreck. At the morgue my hands trembled as the sheet was pulled away. The face beneath was distorted, almost not human. My heart screamed. No, though my head had no proof. I demanded DNA testing despite the coroner warning it might take months. Mama and Daddy pressed for a funeral anyway. "Let her rest," Daddy said. "Dragging it out won't help anyone." His urgency felt like a shove. So we buried a body I couldn't be certain was my sister. Rain sluiced over us as soil thudded on the coffin. Relatives hugged and murmured condolences I hardly heard. Mama and Daddy arrived late, whispering not prayers but business. Snatches of conversation about inheritance and assets that floated through the rain. I clenched my fist until my nails cut my palm. Then, as the final hymn died away, my phone vibrated. An unknown number. A message, "I'm alive." That's not me in the coffin. The world tilted. My knees nearly gave. My pulse hammered so loud I feared everyone could hear it. I shoved the phone into my pocket and kept my face carefully still. If Isla lived, someone had tried to erase her. And I already knew who stood the most to gain. After that message at the graveside, my thoughts scattered. I drove with no destination through the downpour, until I found myself in a rundown diner off Highway 74. I sat over cold coffee, staring at the phone like it might bite. At last I texted, "If this is really you, where are you?" No reply that night. I checked the screen until it blurred and eventually fell asleep in a motel with peeling paint and a leaky faucet. By morning another message had come through. "Meet me at Driftwood Cabin near Oaklight Beach Lighthouse. 9 p.m. Don't tell anyone." My heart jumped. I didn't know if it was salvation or a trap, but I couldn't ignore it. That evening I drove the wet coastal road. The lighthouse beam swept across the Black Sea like a warning. The cabin crouched behind the dunes, small and crooked, a single faint light in the window. I knocked. The door opened and there she was, Isla, my twin, alive. Thinner, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion, but unmistakably real. She flung herself at me, sobbing, "Maya, it's me. It's really me." I hugged her so hard I felt as if we might fuse back together. "I thought I buried you," I whispered, my tears mingling with hers. She pulled me inside and kept glancing out at the shadows as if someone might be watching. The cabin was sparse. A table, 2 chairs, a mattress on the floor. Sitting down, she told me everything in a voice that trembled. When the yacht flipped, she thought she was gone. A fisherman hauled her from the wreckage and brought her here. She'd begged him to keep her hidden. "Maya, I think someone wanted me dead." My chest tightened. "You're saying the storm wasn't just bad luck?" She nodded, tears welling. Our parents had insisted she join the trip. They hired the crew, then suddenly pulled out, claiming, "Daddy was sick." "Doesn't that sound wrong to you?" I swallowed and told her about the funeral. How Mama and Daddy conversed more with the bank than with mourners. How they whispered about inheritance over her coffin. Isla's lips trembled. I knew it. They wanted me out of the way, so they could have everything Adrian left me. Then she leaned in, voice dropping low. But they don't know one thing. Before the trip I made a private will with Attorney Wells. If anything happened to me, everything goes to you. If you weren't alive, it all goes to a charity in Riverton. I couldn't risk them getting it. I froze. Isla, why didn't you tell me? She gave a sad smile. I didn't want you to worry. I just wanted to be sure the money never fell into the wrong hands. Her trust felt heavy on my chest. If anyone found out she was alive, they'd come for both of us. Her eyes flashed. Then we have to get proof. Real proof. Under that dim lamp, with the storm outside echoing the turmoil inside, we mapped a plan. I would meet Wells and confirm the will. I'd dig around the marina to see if anyone remembered anything before the yacht left. Somewhere there had to be a thread tying back to Mama and Daddy. Before I left the cabin, I pulled her into my arms again. Stay hidden. Stay safe. Nobody will ever lay a hand on you again. She pressed her forehead gently to mine. Her tone soft yet unwavering. You've always been my shield, Maya. You still are. I stepped back into the night, the air heavy with salt and secrets. Driving away, a sharp realization lodged in my chest. The same parents who once dismissed us as burdens were ready to erase their own child for money. But this time, they had chosen the wrong daughter to underestimate. The very next morning, I entered the office of Attorney Dorian Wells, the man Isla had trusted with her private will. He was tall, older, silver hair framing sharp eyes that seemed to slice through falsehoods. Miss Carter, he greeted slowly, standing from behind his desk. I didn't expect you here. I thought. His words faltered. Careful. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. She's alive, Mr. Wells. Isla's in hiding. But if my parents suspect even a whisper of it, she's in danger. I need to make sure her will is still secure. He studied me for a moment, then unlocked a heavy safe. From it, he placed an envelope on the table. My sister's handwriting stared back at me. Inside, her wishes were clear. Everything to me if she died, and if I wasn't alive, then to a charity in Riverton. Not a penny to Mama or Daddy. I exhaled. Keep this between us. Please. Wells nodded gravely. Of course. But tread carefully. I've seen families destroy themselves over far less. Leaving his office, I felt both lighter and heavier. The will was safe, but safety meant nothing without proof of who had tried to erase her. That trail led me to Harborview Marina, where our yacht had last departed. The air reeked of salt and diesel, gulls circling like beggars. The marina manager directed me to a dockhand named Eddie. If anything odd went down, that boy noticed. Eddie was young, sunburned from long days outdoors, barely out of high school. I bought him a coffee, and we sat on an overturned crate. I just need the truth, I said quietly. He shifted uneasily. Night before the yacht left, I saw someone sneak aboard. Black coat, cap pulled low, walked with a limp. Spent time in the engine room. Didn't look like crew. I told the captain, but he brushed it off. A chill spread through me. You're certain? Eddie nodded. Didn't see his face, but he didn't belong there. I thanked him, pressed a 20 into his palm, and walked away with my chest tight. Someone had sabotaged that boat. Back in Riverton, I started watching Mama and Daddy. Their old house looked transformed. New curtains, fresh paint, a shiny SUV gleaming in the driveway. Layla's generosity had bought all of it. For 2 days nothing. Daddy mowed the lawn. Mama went shopping. But on the third night, they drove past the train tracks to a dive bar called the Rusty Nail. I slipped inside behind them. The place reeked of smoke and stale beer. And in the back booth sat Mama and Daddy, with a man in a black coat, cap pulled low, limp and all. My stomach twisted. At the counter, I pretended to sip a beer, straining to catch fragments of their hushed voices. It's done. No one suspects. The insurance pays once the paper's clear. My pulse thundered. When the man left, I shadowed him through narrow streets until he stopped near an abandoned warehouse. Before he could disappear inside, I grabbed his collar and slammed him against the wall. Who paid you to touch that yacht? I demanded. He struggled, but I shoved harder. All right, he shouted. Your parents. They gave me 50 grand to mess with the engine and radio. Said it just had to look like bad luck. I didn't know they wanted her dead. The words gutted me. My own parents. I pulled out my phone, hit record. Say it again. His voice trembled as he repeated every word. Then I forced him to write it down, his hands shaking so badly the ink smeared. If you run, I warned, my voice ice, I'll find you. He bolted into the shadows as soon as I let go. Under the flickering streetlight, I stared at the recording on my phone. My parents, who had given us neither love nor food, had tried to erase their own child for money. The next day, I called an old friend at Blue Horizon Insurance. Check the records, I asked. Hours later, his stunned voice returned. Maya, you won't believe this. 2 weeks before the yacht sailed, your parents took out a massive policy. If it sank and Isla died, they'd collect millions. The final piece clicked into place. That night, I called Isla from a payphone, hands shaking. We have proof. A confession. The insurance policy. Mama and Daddy planned it all. Silence stretched before her voice cracked. I didn't want to believe it. But now, Maya, we have to stop them. I swallowed hard. We will. But smart. Let them think they've won. Then we'll tear it all down in front of the world. The courthouse in Seabreeze County looked far too small for everything at stake. The benches overflowed with spectators, relatives, reporters, strangers drawn by rumors of a fortune. Mama sat in front, draped in a black dress and Sunday pearls, playing the grieving mother. Daddy wore a pressed suit, his hands folded like a church elder. To anyone else, they seemed respectable, but I knew the rot beneath. Attorney Wells began the proceedings, outlining the estate's distribution. Mama leaned forward, faint smile curling her lips as if victory was already hers. The judge cleared his throat. If there are no objections or further evidence, we'll proceed with the transfer of assets. I rose, my voice slicing through the silence. Your Honor, I object. Every head turned. Mama's face hardened. Daddy's lips pressed tight. My sister, Isla Carter, is not dead. And the people in this room tried to kill her. Gasps rippled across the chamber. The judge's gavel slammed. Miss Carter, these are grave accusations. Do you have proof? I held up a flash drive. Yes, Your Honor. The recording filled the courtroom, the saboteur's trembling voice admitting it all. Her parents paid me $50,000 to tamper with the yacht. Said it only needed to look like an accident. The room erupted. Mama shot up shrieking, lies. All lies. Daddy yanked her down, his eyes darting wildly. I laid the insurance policy on the table. 2 weeks before the yacht sailed, they took out a policy worth millions. If Isla died, they cashed in. That isn't love, it's greed. The judge leaned forward, frowning. Where is Miss Isla Carter now? I turned toward the doors. Right here. The doors swung open. Isla walked in, thin, pale, but alive. Her braids draped her shoulders like a crown. The room froze. Mama's scream split the silence. Not relief, but terror. Daddy's mouth hung open like he'd seen a ghost. Isla's voice wavered, but held strong. I am Isla Carter. I survived the wreck, and I hid because I knew someone wanted me gone. The whispers swelled until the judge called for order. Miss Carter, please continue. Isla turned to face our parents. You called us burdens our whole lives. You treated us as extra mouths instead of daughters. And when Adrian left me a future, you tried to erase me to steal it. Mama wept, though her tears rang hollow. Daddy barked. How dare you accuse your own blood? The gavel cracked. Enough. This court is not a stage. The evidence stands. A full criminal investigation will proceed. Mama's hands trembled, pearls nearly snapping beneath her grip. Daddy's face darkened like a man caught red-handed. But it was too late. The truth was out. The weeks that followed were heavy. Police arrested Mama and Daddy for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder. Neighbors who once praised them now whispered in disgust. Isla sold the mansion, funneling the proceeds into the Adrian Foundation, scholarships, clinics, youth programs back in Riverton. The very place we once longed to escape. If money nearly destroyed us, she said, then it's only right it saves someone else. We visited the families of the crew lost at sea, sitting in homes where grief clung like fog. Isla wept with them, apologizing though none of it was her fault. They were victims too, she whispered. As for Mama and Daddy, they wrote from jail, letters full of blame, calling us ungrateful. We never replied. Some ties are better cut forever. One evening, Isla and I sat on my porch in Riverton, the sound of children playing ball echoing down the block. She leaned against me, voice low. Maya, you've been my family since the day we were born. Mama and Daddy never were. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders, holding her close. That's all we need, Isla. Just us. The night was quiet, peaceful for once. Our story didn't end in riches, but in truth, survival, and the bond of two sisters who had clung to each other from the beginning. And this time no storm, not even one stirred by blood, could tear us apart. That's how I learned the truth. Sometimes the greatest threat doesn't come from strangers, but from those who share your blood. My parents thought they could bury both my sister and the truth. But storms can't silence what's meant to rise again. Now I want to hear from you. What would you do if your parents turned against you? Could you forgive, or would you walk away forever? Share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing your perspective. And if this story moved you, remember to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another tale of betrayal, survival, and redemption. Before you go, tell me where in the world you're watching from. I read every comment, and it fills me with joy to see this community grow across the globe. Until next time, remember, family isn't always the people who raise you. Sometimes, family is the one who stands beside you when the storm comes.